And October 21, last week, we have the global agenda on UN Resolution 1325 and the relevance of unarmed civilian protection in advancing women, peace, and security in the region. And today, we have come to our last and final webinar with the topic, the role of women in post-conflict and in peace process in Southeast Asia. With this, we make our small and humble contribution to promote the importance of UN Resolution 1325 in our region. We in Nonviolent Peace Force is committed to promoting women's agency in peacekeeping, peacemaking, and peacebuilding. After this series of online activity, we hope to work together with different groups and entities in the region, especially with the women, peace and security groups and advocates, especially with the ASEAN Women for Peace Registry. We hope to be able to work on furthering the gains of this online promotional activity and move to more concrete advocacy work both at national and regional levels. Ladies and gentlemen, your time and interest are an important contribution as we work together in advancing and amplifying the women, peace, and security agenda in our respective communities. Thus, I encourage you to join us for meaningful learning experience and exchange of information. I would like also to welcome our community participant of indigenous women of KMMKM in Bukidnon, Mindanao, and women from southern Thailand who are also joining us in the Zoom, in the Zoom meeting all the way from Patani. We thank for by Rachel Alvarez and Miss Anchana Hamina who help us facilitate the participation of community-based women. Thank you very much by Rachel and Anchana. I believe by participating in this webinar, you are already making a difference. For your information, we are going on live stream also in our Facebook page, Nonviolent Peace Force. Before I introduce our moderator, Ma'am Miriam Ferrer, please let me invite you to watch our short video clip that will show our work on civilian protection.
At the beginning of the 20th century, the majority of fatalities in conflict were soldiers. And when we fast forward 100 years, and the majority of fatalities are actually civilians. And so the way we approach peacekeeping and civilian protection has to shift. Like South Sudan, where since December of 2013, a very serious civil war has displaced millions of people and tens of thousands of people have been killed. When women are moving out to collect firewood or to collect water or other things that they need, they're often targeted for sexual violence as a way to use rape as a weapon of war. In most cases, we see no incidents of violence as long as they're with a protective accompaniment team.
It was quite a surprise. People with weapons coming in saying like, you guys go, you guys go. And we said like, we're not leaving. They would hit the women and children. If we had a gun in those instances, we were like, you know, like an armed peacekeeper, we probably would have been killed.
Thank you. Lastly, please let me introduce you to our moderator, Professor Miriam Coronel Ferrer. Professor Miriam Coronel Ferrer is currently Senior Mediation Advisor at the United Nations. She's a political science professor also at the University of the Philippines. She headed the Philippine government panel for the peace talk with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. She became the first woman chief negotiator in the world to have signed a major peace agreement with the armed group when when the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsa Moro was signed in 2014. She is a UNDP and Peace Awardee and a recipient of the Hillary Clinton Award for Advancing Women in Peace and Security. She previously headed the non-state working group of the International Campaign to Ban Landmines, which won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1997, and joined the 1,000 women around the world nominated for the same prize in 2005. Her latest scholarly work, entitled Region, Nation, and Homeland, Resistance Discourse in the Moro and Cordillera Movements, be just published by the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies in Singapore this year. Ma'am Ferrer, Professor Ferrer, thank you very much for your participation. I give the floor to you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, uh, Dr. Delcy Ronnie. Of course, the Nonviolent Peace Force has been an important partner in our peace process here on the Bangsamoro in the civilian protection aspect of the work, and we thank you for that. So this forum that we're having today, which belongs to the series that Ronnie Delcy had just described to us over the last week, will focus on the role of women in post-conflict and in peace processes in Southeast Asia. We know that the 20th anniversary of UN Security Resolution 1325 has really led to a blossoming of a lot of forums and initiatives along this line. And it's very good indeed that in Southeast Asia, we are having our voices heard and our particular concerns, our successes and our pains also projected in the big screen of global peace building. We do have several speakers lined up for a very short time. We have 45 minutes for our panel. And so without further ado, we will begin our panel today with our lead discussant. As you know, 2020 being the 20th anniversary of Security Council 1325, it's a good time really to ensure that we will have 2020 vision in moving this agenda forward. And to give us an overview of the challenges, particularly the role of women in post-conflict and peace processes, the theme of our event today is none other than Teresita Quintos Deles, a long time who is a pioneer in two fronts, actually, both in the feminist movement in the Philippines as well as in the peace movement. So she has led various peace coalitions, women's organization, way back until she joined government service, becoming the first woman presidential advisor on the peace process with cabinet rank in 2003 and 2005, and serving again in the same position from 2010 and 2016, where I worked under her. The government panel for the negotiations with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front was lodged in her office during the presidency of Simeon Benigno Aquino III. So it was under her watch that not only the Comprehensive Agreement was signed in 2014, but all the other aspects relating to advancing the National Action Plan of the country at the time on 1325 saw its real heyday, and we do hope that that momentum will not be lost under the current situation. So shall we now invite Ging, as everybody here calls her, Teresita Ging Quintos Deles, to begin her presentation.
We lost your audio, Ging.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay.
And yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be the lead discussant here. Actually, I am unable to speak of the entire Southeast Asian situation or experience. My focus has always been the Philippines, but we are hopeful that what we have been able to achieve and the problems and the challenges that we faced will be meaningful to all of Southeast Asia. I played the title around a bit and put peace processes and peace and post-conflict processes, because we will start with the mainstream of the peace process. Next slide, please. Next slide. I was basically given three guide questions to answer. First, what roles did women play, and why are women effective in these roles, and what are the gaps and challenges? And as I said, my focus will be where I am looking at the experiences I can speak about is coming from the Bangsamoro peace process, and my focus will be on track one, the negotiations and the implementation phase thereafter. I will not speak about the other tracks and the other roles, because I think track one is the problematic area. It is where, after women are very clearly very active on the ground, doing peace building and calling for peace, that it is when you get to track one, when the actual structured formal negotiations happen, that the men take over. And that is the area up to now that becomes very difficult to breach, with, I understand, only 13% of women in formal peace processes and only 4% of signatories. So that is our focus, coming from the Bangsamoro peace process. And from there, with the sharing of experiences, I hope it will be part story, part conceptual learnings, is to look at the what, the why, and the how. Next slide, please. I will start off with a picture just so we know what is happening here. When we ask what role have women played, we know that it is not static. And you will see on screen two pictures of signing of two major peace agreements. The first one in 1996 between the government of the Philippines and the MNLF. And in 2014, the signing of the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro with the MILF. And very clearly, I hope you notice it, that the picture on top, it is all men, even the ones passing the paper. I always used to say before that it was all men except for those who passed the papers to be signed. But in this case, no, even those who are passing the paper are men. While in the lower picture, you will see, at least on the side of government, which is on the right side, how many women there are. In fact, 3 signatories, 3 out of 5 signatories were women, and which will speak of, and at the very extreme side there is the head of the Secretariat for the government peace process, also a woman. So where were we at the end by 2016, when the term of President Aquino ended? Next slide, please. Is when we say where are the women, then we will really have to say, really, in the peace process in track one, women can be everywhere, because in the experience of the Philippine government at this time, at the end of the term, what did we have in the government side of the peace negotiations? The chair of the negotiating panel, Miriam Coronel Ferrer, Professor Ferrer, she did not work under me, we worked side by side, was a woman. The heads of the legal panel, the secretariat, and 3 out of the 4 technical working groups which negotiated the annexes to the CAB. That's the power sharing, revenue sharing, transition modalities, and the normalization phase. 3 out of those negotiations were headed by women, and 3 out of 4 independent bodies created by CAB, which includes the decommissioning body, the police commission, the transitional justice commission, the third-party monitoring team. 3 out of those 4, the government representatives were women. So pretty much we covered all bases. For the MILF, you will see in the picture that you would have seen in the picture that was still pretty much male, no woman on stage for the signing. But the women were in fact brought in initially as advisors and as TWG workers. And we note that one of those women who was initially brought in as advisor became an alternate panel member, stayed through to the end, and in the end was one of the last 3 from the MILF team that negotiated the final draft BBL. So among the last standing was a woman, Attorney Raisa Jejuri. And we will mention that among local women, the first all-women contingent under the INT civilian protection component was also launched. Next page. We will have to say though, and we need to look at the foreign third party, because this is in one part a good story because many countries in Southeast Asia were involved in our peace process. In fact, beyond Southeast Asia. However, the participation of women in the foreign third-party bodies, that one is not such a happy story. But still some good notes. The facilitator was from Malaysia, and the head of the secretariat, very powerful. The facilitator worked so well with her. She was technically on top of everything, was a woman. We know that in the world, there have been women facilitators. In our other peace table, our Norwegian facilitator was a woman. The international contact group, you will see the countries there, and none from Southeast Asia, but in the international NGOs that were part of the international group, contact group, that included Muhammadiyah from Indonesia. But the sad story there is that only one woman who represented the conciliation resources, who happened to be an Australian woman based in Cambodia and living in Cambodia, Emma Leslie. In the international monitoring team, of course, this was unarmed. This was a group that was getting right in the middle of the armed conflict. But by the time that we left, women were in fact being brought in Indonesia, because Indonesia, Malaysia, and Brunei were part of this. There was already one woman in the Indonesian contingent by the time that we left. And we know that worldwide, women have been playing roles in peacekeeping forces. We know that Norway, for example, there is a woman that has led a peacekeeping force globally. Next. So what do we say? If we'll have the next slide. The question then is, how did that happen in a matter of 20 years, 2 decades? The situation changed. Women got on the table. Women got into track 1. And we trace certain things that had happened. One is the moving away, and this is not just women, it is the whole of government thinking with advocates and with government people, moving away from the traditional hard security view to a broader view of peace and security, talking more about human security than the traditional hard security. Even in the national security plan of government, the language begins to change. Which means that if you're not just talking about hard security, then you look at other agencies, you look at other sectoral engagements, you look at a broadened negotiation agenda. You're not just depending now on the military or those who have experience with what's so-called hard security, which relatedly then brings the peace track to be more civilianized. There are appointments now from other fields of expertise, including from civil society. And let us also mention, taking into account geographic and generational representation. The traditional view of elderly men elderly men dominating the peace table, that begins to change. An important factor is women appointing other women. When women get into decision-making positions, then there is the probability that there will be other women also who will be appointed, because women know women. Women know what other women are doing, and they bring them in. As well, there was a very strong lobby from the long experience of civil society advocates, a strong lobby by women-led civil society peace movement to include the gender agenda in peace talks and mechanisms, really persistent, really tenacious. And there was the use, and because there were also more legal and institutional tools that came in, so not only national legislation, but the UN treaties, UNSCR 1325, for example, was very important in getting the MILF to accept some of the gender-based provisions that were being put forward. So we say, and I bring this picture back because we don't want to look at this. When we look at this, we don't want to just be looking at statistics. We don't say, okay, 4% now, 13%. We want to say that there are actual women, there are real women who have taken that position. Those positions have pushed, have in a way done sacrifices, have taken risks to play these roles. In the picture on the right, you will see the five women who played very important roles. The three who are in dark suits with Miriam there on the top are the three women who signed, who were signatories to the CAB. And you have lower down the head of the legal panel, very young, as you can see, and the head of the secretariat, young women. On the picture on the left is the whole community of women that helped these women to push this process. And you will see they come from different ethnicities, religious backgrounds, and different ages as well. Next. Next. So what did the women bring? Why did it matter? Why is it that it was under this time that we were able to bring to a close 17 years of protracted negotiations and 4 decades of armed conflict? And we talk about first fidelity and the perseverance of women. Peace is not just a seasonal issue for women, which sometimes it is for men who, when there is a crisis, they come to help solve the problem. But peace is not a seasonal issue. It is there, and women know that because women are close to the ground. They know that families continue to suffer, and they keep their eye on the ball. And in a way that was surprising sometimes for the public when the peace process disappears from view and then suddenly it's there again and they say, hey, there are people, there are women who have kept their eye on the ball. Women cover both policy making and what I like to call housekeeping, because peace processes is not just the policy, it's not just the political negotiations. There's a lot of housekeeping involved. Files have to be kept, phone calls need to be answered, papers have to be reproduced. And women are willing to do that. They can be on the policy table and faxing a letter at the same time. There were times in these negotiations when it was an all-women team that was left in Kuala Lumpur, and they were able to do everything, both policy, secretariat work, nothing too small, nothing too big, if it has to be for peace. Thinking out of the security box, that's important. And we don't stick to the security box because we were not raised that way. We were not attuned to the military mindset. So when there is a problem, there are many solutions. It doesn't always have to come from that security box of tools. Very important, putting a human face to issues of peace and conflict, because peace is a human issue. Real people suffer from it. And women keep that because they are with the families, they are with the ground. And they put a human face to it because they also express their emotions, sometimes even on a public floor. And that's important because people need to see that the peace process is real and its effects are real for people, for communities on the ground. And when there is a voice, there is a woman's voice that speaks at the signing of a peace agreement, that reminds people that this was not just a political settlement, it was not just a political act. It represents aspirations and pains of very real people. Taking the long and the far view, because we know this from experience. We've raised children. There's no shortcut. There's no shortcut to raising a child. You may want your child to be already grown up and 18 and 20 and out of your hands, but that doesn't happen in a shortcut. You have to take every painful step along the way. You have to take the long and the far view, which means you have to remember the history, and you also have to remember that whatever you signed has to be implemented. Otherwise, the shortcuts will fall through. And of course, because women are there, they ensure that there's a women's space in post-conflict reconstruction. When women are not on the table, then the vision, the world that they envision post-conflict, the tasks that they envision may not include and may not go down to be able to impact on the real lives of people. Next. And so in the implementation phase, and I put this out, it is in very small print. You don't have to be able to read it. This is just to show that implementation is not that simple. It is almost a cliche. We say that signing an agreement is not the last step. It is in fact sometimes the first step of a sometimes more difficult process, because there are many stages. There's security, socio-economic development, confidence building, transitional justice, all of these to make a peace agreement work and become a reality in the lives of people. Next, please. So we are in the Philippines now in the Bangsamoro peace process in the implementation stage. And pretty much, I think all peace processes will need one or the other, most of these components that we have put here, which is the reality of the Bangsamoro peace process. There is a political track. Most peace settlements will have a political track, because that is exactly what is usually argued for, that there is a different governance arrangement. But there also needs to be, this track will also need to include political consolidation, because it will include the transformation of an armed group to become a political force. That political consolidation is going to be important. There is a security track, because the signing of the peace agreement doesn't turn off the guns, doesn't put down the guns immediately. There will be decommissioning. There will be, in this time of transition, the possibility of other lawless elements to take advantage. So there are going to have to be security arrangements. There's a socioeconomic development and rehabilitation track, because people need to feel the peace dividend. There need to be confidence building measures sometimes, because sometimes the results of all the other tracks will take time, and people need to grow confidence in the process. So in the early stage, confidence building measures. And finally, transitional justice and reconciliation, which is a much forgotten part, which women need to keep to. Yes, I will put here, in all of these stages, you need technical competence, which women have exhibited. It also needs political savvy, because you are going to have to navigate sometimes a different political terrain. Sometimes administrations will change, and you have to know the politics and the fidelity and persistence, the tenacity not to give up, just to hold on. A peace agreement never ended the conflict by itself. One is going to have to stick through the hard times. Let me just go through very quickly two pictures. Just one picture. I like to end my presentations. The next slide, please. Just with the reminder that every woman has a story. And I put here three women, three moral lawyers, just to illustrate. These are women who played roles. Johaira Wahab was the first head of the legal panel. When she resigned to enter the Foreign Service, Ana Tarhata Basman they were both under the age of 30 when they played the role. And Attorney Raisa Jajuri on the side of the MILF. And you'd think three moral lawyers in the peace process, in peace negotiations, pretty much you will know the story. But no, every woman has that story. I won't tell that story, their stories, because I didn't get their permission to do it. But just to say, every woman who gets on this takes the risks, has their own narrative. They bear the pain, they bear the sacrifice. They win the victories, and each woman will have their own story, and that's important too. Just to say that Johaira is now with the Foreign Service. She's in the Kuala Lumpur Philippine Mission, I understand. Ana Tarhata Basman is a member of the parliament, the Bangsamoro Parliament. So is Attorney Raisa, and who is also currently the Minister for Social Welfare and Development in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region.
Okay.
And that's the end. And that's the end. And we just say thank you.
Thank
Women
you.
matter.
Right. Thank you, Ging. When you talk about every woman, that reminded me, of course, of your current work in this group that's called Every Woman, Every Woman. And aside from your current job with the InsightGov, or the International Center on Innovation, Transformation, and Excellence in Governance, or InsightGov, you did make a very strong point there why women matter. And I think the long and short of that is that because peace matters. And women will make sure that peace does happen for everyone, of course, including for women, but for the whole community, the whole country, and the world. Ging brought us to the peace process experience in the south of the Philippines. Now we will go farther south to southern Thailand with our next speaker, Dr. Kanlaya Daraha, who is an assistant professor at the Prince Songkhla University in Patani, southern Thailand. She is vice president of Teaching and Education Research Association of Eurasia Research, and is also one of the founding members of the women-led civil society organization called the Network of Civic Women for Peace in Southern Border Provinces, and the academic, as well as the academic Coordination Center of Children and Women in Southern Border Provinces, Thailand. I know that a lot of faculty members in the Prince Songkhla University are indeed very, very engaged in what's going on in that part of Thailand, and we certainly love to hear more about how things have been going recently and your own experiences. Dr. Daraha, please take the floor. Or shall I say, take the screen.
Good afternoon, the President, Mamen, and all speaker and everybody. I am from Thailand, and congratulations to celebration of the 20th anniversary of UN security. Okay, thank you. Okay, next slide, please. I talk about women in peace process in the deep south of Thailand. The situation, the violent situation occurred in 2004 to now, 16 years old. There are many orphans, there are many widows in the deep south of Thailand. You see the incident. Hard target 3, soft target 5, and now it reduced the injured and the dead. But now I think the orphan, the widows, are still okay. Next slide, please. You see the number of incidents, January 13 to August 70 years, right? You see like this, because I think about the crime, about the separatism, in Thailand, the deep south in Thailand. Why? Why? Because separatism. I don't agree about this. Yeah, okay. The dead 2, injured 6. You see in the slide. May I? The next slide. I can hurry up about this because the role of women in the southern area, you know, many people are the victims in the deep south of Thailand. Women, people, and the child. What's happened? It's very sad. It's very sad, very sorrow, I think so. Why the role of women to empower them, the victim to the victor? Because I study social work, you know, I go to the village. Many people go to village to rehabilitation the widow, the orphans and the injured in the deep south. You know, one the step, humanitarian, 2 human rights, 3 capacity building, 4 non-violence, 5 dialogue, 6 peace communication and advocacy. I am social worker, you know, many of them non-social worker, but has done life social worker in the deep south of Thailand to empowerment them. Yes, okay. To empowerment, to reheal them, to be strong, Okay, yes, right. Pass it. Next slide. Next slide, please. You know the victim. I can say the victim. I can say the people who affect the violent situation in the deep south. One, P. Duang Suda, you know, Kayana Takbai yesterday, okay, on Takbai's day on 25th October, and it's very 16 years. Gana Takbai is, she lost the husband, she lost his son, and 3 people lost the husband. And Patama, you see, Patama is the police suspect her, yeah. And Kak Saimah, you know, Kak Saimah from Kuching Lepak. You can see Kuching Lepak, you can know about Kuching Lepak. And Korea, the husband was arrested. And Saitun, the husband was shot. What happened in the deep south of Thailand? The next slide, please. Okay, please, the next slide. How the women do in the peace process? Women in the peace process in humanitarian for remedy. Want to hand the affected victim which have not been counted in government's criteria. You know, the Thai government has three groups to do about this. 1 soldier, 2 police, 3 the governor. But many of them does not take care of the government, and the women take care of them or rehabilitation them. You know, many of them were in the jail. It's very sorry. And to hear the support the communities, okay? And to establish the group which members can do self-support to each other. Widowhoods, you know, it had the widowhoods in the deep south of Thailand. To empower them together, you know, Kana Takbai. Kana Takbai is on Sunday, 25th, is the anniversary Takbai 2 days ago, yes, right? 2 days ago. We collaborate with them, we empower them. You know, Takbai situation is, I think in the world knows about the accident. No, accident. The situation, the violent situation, okay? To educate the victims know how to access the support provided by the government. Next slide, please, okay? Next slide, please. Peace dialogue, okay? In 2013, a peace dialogue between the Thai government. Okay, again, please wait, okay? In 2013, a peace dialogue between the Thai government and representative of the movement was initiated under Section 8 of the National Security Council's 2013 throughout 2014. You know, now 2020, administration and development policy for the southern border provinces. These policies sought to encourage continuity of the peace dialogue process with people who have different opinions and ideologies from the states. As one of the stakeholders to the southern border provinces problems, and women's group in the southern border provinces demonstrate their support for the readiness to take part in the 2003 peace dialogue. Is very important that start during the Yingluck Chinawat administration to 2018. Yingluck Chinawat was the Prime Minister of Thailand. Neither the Thai side nor the BRN voiced objection to women's involvement in the peace process. The peace process is very important to peace dialogue. Next slide, please. You know, I empower the mother who affect the violent situation. Iso Muso, yes, right? You know, she is dumb. She is dumb. It said in the Citizen News, Thai BPS, on October 2009. It's in the channel. You can see it about it because many women empower them. Many people empower them because Iso Muso was arrested by the soldier, but now what's happened to him? He died now. Okay, yes, past. It's very sad. I think so. The next slide, please. Okay, the next slide, please. The empowerment. You know who is he? The regional director, Mohammad Naziri, conclude his 3 days visit to Thailand Deep South, launching the Muslimah processing facility, a women-led startup driving women's entrepreneurial participation in Kuching Lepa community Narathiwat. Kuching Lepa is the place. It has the violence from, I think, the deep violence because someone, the teacher, the name of Kuchuling was Kuchuling died from the accident, from the situation, and some of people were arrested by the soldiers. One now for advocate them, for empower them, the regional director from UN Women empower them, the team to do together. I no everybody, no, I think civic women and the role of women in the Deep South to go to visit them, to empower them. The presence of economic opportunity. We think economics is good for solve this problem. With advanced peace and create safe space for women and the community for future support each other to empower them together. You see, the vice governor from Narathiwat, Patimoh Haji Semu, yes, Patimoh, yes, okay. Now she is the vice governor in Yala. Next, okay, next, please. You see, the women's participation in the peace process, how to do is one, to educate and monitor the peace talk dialogue. Two, to open the space and listen to the women's opinion and stakeholders. Three, to create the peace proposal in issue. To do the campaign, advocate the offer into the plenary and those who are on the table for peace talk dialogue. You know, the women in the Deep South, the civic society has challenge to talk about peace talk dialogue with the soldier, you see, to evolve the peace talk dialogue. Next, please. Next, please. How do we do it? Now we work together in the market, at the market, school, mosque, and temple to be the safe zone for everybody, for the women, for the people, for everybody, with two hands. Stop the violence, for stop the violence. Pass. Next, please. Next, please. Okay. Women, the civic society in making dialogue. One, how we do it. One, to train the women to be facilitator for the peace talk dialogue, because you know some women in the committee cannot talk, cannot voice, and the civic society, civic society train the women to be facilitator for the peace talk dialogue. Two, to have discussion program in community between the local and the official, you know, soldiers, police, and the party, the political party, and the Buddhist and Muslim. Three, to coordinate, monitor the victims to access the compensation after the discussion program. Four, to establish the group work for the victim and support the work after the discussion program. You know, the women are one vulnerable group, and we must to empower them together, talk together, empower together. I think it's very better now. Pass, please. In Songkhla, it is in Songkhla province. Next, the empowerment for the victim. You know, I think I am say the people who affected the violent situation in Deep South. They talk with the soldier. They can talk with the soldier, but I don't know the soldier listen or not, but they can talk with the soldier and the police. Pass. Next. Okay. Ajahn Soraya Jamjuri in the Citizen News about peace dialogue in Chumchon Kuching Lepa. I said before about Kuching Lepa has the bad situation because many of them are arrested. The people in the village are arrested, and Kuchuling was killed, died. It's many violent situations. I think in the world know about this situation, and we talk together how to do it, how to solve this problem very well. Next, pass. Next, okay. The civic society and the peace communication is very important about peace communication. We work together. I talked before about this, about we work together in market, at the market, school, mosque, and temple to be the safe zone for the women. I think for the children too, and stop the violence. Pass. Next. Grupo, you know, the desert in Kuching Lepa reduce the pain in the event, in the violent situation. Now the Grupo send every provinces like now, because Kuching Lepa, it has about the market to send to every province. I think in the foreign country in the future. Pass. Okay. Next. Okay, you see. The people who affected the violence, it has the sound. You said the sound, it said the voice now, the sound of hope, and now I think they are better than before, because they smile now. The woman who affected the violence smile now, you know, the children smile. But I think it has the violence, it's still now, but it's better than before. Pass it. Next. Women civic society with the proposed measurement for women according to the resolution of UNSCR 1325 or WPS in Songkhla province. You know, it has one in the meeting in Songkhla. It has many, there are many people. There are many for people. There are many parties about civil society. It has many civic society too. One, to promote, to involve in the drafting, make the measurement. Two, to coordinate with UN Women and Social Development and Human Security, create a program for listening or people's opinion with the measurement. Three, to propose rate up the request to the government and political party to implement the measurement. There are many political parties now to come here this day. 4, to make a shadow report. It's very important, I think so, shadow report, because the women, when reports is very nice, but shadow report, you must know everything. To make a shadow report, CDO, in order to update the progression. Next, please.
Oh, very sorry, Dr. Kanlaya, but we are running out of time. So please round up your discussion.
Yeah, okay, yes, okay. I think, okay, pass. I think the women civil society is very important women for how the people who endure, who have the violent situation in the deep south of Thailand. Okay. Next, okay. 1 minute, 1 minute. The 5 measurement and implementation for women in supporting peace and security. 1, prevention; 2, protection and recovery; 3, capacity building; 4, empowerment and participation; 5, mechanism. Next, only 1 minute. Okay, next, please. Next, please. Stop. Next. Stop. 2 slides, 2 slides. Okay, next, please. The measurement 5, to create the mechanism and support the mobility. 1, to have coordination center for supporting and monitoring the progression according to the policy and strategy with regard women will support the peace process and security. 2, to use and support the mechanism that is available in the conflict areas for directing the policy, make an action plan, measurement and budget for solving the violence against women due to the conflict, to follow up and report and the progression to the subcommittee on women and the promotion of peace and security. 1 slide, I think. Please, next. Okay, you see, in Thailand, the coordination, it had the coordination center for children and women. The Prime Minister opens coordination center for children and women in Southern Border Province, CCWSBP, and another center in Yala Province, Thailand, on 7 August 2019. And Mrs. Soraya Jamjuri is the president here. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Next slide. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Kanlaya. You gave. Don't go yet. We still have the open forum later. But yes, you did give us very concrete examples of the work that's being done by women, from the addressing humanitarian consequences to peace dialogue to empowerment in the public sphere as well as in the economy. And then very specific also monitoring, campaigning, training. I think these are all very good specifics, and we do have some comments on the chat box. For our participants who have come to this event, do keep sending your comments on the chat box, and we'll be asking our speakers as well to take a look at these and maybe address them later during our open forum. Just a brief reminder as well, we do need to keep track of the time that's allotted for your presentation so that we'll have more time to have an open discussion. Now we'll move to Myanmar, and the person that we have with us is also a member of the ASEAN.
Thank you. Thank you.
ASEAN Women Peace and Security, ASEAN Women's Peace Registry, just like Teresita Quintos Deles. She is both a government official and academic having published several books and articles on the last one being on ensuring good governance, but also occupying a very important post in government as Director General at the Pension Department under the Ministry of Planning and Finance, and also different offices in the past at the Ministry of National Planning and Economic Development. So Dr. Wawa Mong, please let us hear from you now.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you for giving me a chance to participate in this. Good afternoon, Excellencies and distinguished participants. It's really nice to meet you online, and great to see all of you. As an upper member of Myanmar, I just would like to update peace process in Myanmar. More than 6 decades of internal armed conflict, Myanmar's peace process has been launched since August 2011 and enjoy significant initial success, as bilateral ceasefires were agreed with more than a dozen ethnic armed groups. The Union government has been working with deep regards towards not only obtaining a ceasefire, but to resolve political problems through discussions using political means and to end the internal armed conflict that had remained rooted for many years. The nationwide cease agreement (NCA) is a landmark ceasefire agreement between the government of Myanmar and the representatives of various ethnic insurgent groups, officially known as Ethnic Armed Organization (EAOs) by the government. But signing a nationwide ceasefire and proceeding to political dialogue phase has been much more difficult. Aiming to bring an end to nearly 7 decades long civil war in Myanmar and establish a new democratic federal union, 10 ethnic arms organizations signed a nationwide ceasefire agreement (NCA) with the government of Myanmar on 15 October 2015 and again the 13th February 2018 and 20th August 2020 respectively. That last one is very recently. National Reconciliation and Peace Center (NRPC) has been established for the peace negotiation and chaired by the State Councillor Daw Aung San Suu Kyi. The platform for the peacemaking process has been approached towards 21st Century Penlong Conference, which has been organized for 4 times already. Part 3 of the Union Accord was successfully signed at the 3rd final day of the 4th section of the Union Peace Conference. It was in August 20th, 2020. So the negotiation piece already into the part 3. It has been recorded as a Union Accord. And this is the historic peace document, which can be seen as a crucial step for establishing a democratic federal union, as it includes more detailed descriptions of procedure for future peacemaking processes. For those peacemaking efforts are done simultaneously by politically and militarily through the Union Peace Dialogue, a joint committee, we call it UPDJC. So that under the summit, we have many working groups and joint committee. So that we have formed UPDJC, Joint Implementation Coordination Meeting, JICM. At present, Union Peace Dialogue Joint Committee meetings have been organized up to 19 times, and Joint Implementation Coordination Committee for 8 times already. Mutual trust is crucial in this process, and worries might turn out hindrance. However, it is increased in understanding and trust between both sides. The demands from the both sides should be reasonable. That is why negotiation ability and skills are important for the peacemaking process. And then third GICM is the first coordination meeting in 2020 for this year for peacemaking process, which has been held, last August 2020. It is also a dawn of peace, stability, and development of the state. Expected by the people. And 7th GICM was held on 28th February 2018, and the 8th GICM could resume the stalled peace dialogue. Those meetings stretched and also strengthened the ceasefire of 10 ethnic armed groups organizations and has signed nationwide ceasefire agreement, NCAN, was conducting political discussions in stages towards achieving basic principles that are the basic foundation of establishing a federal democratic union. At the same time, it is striving for the participation of 8 EAOs that had not signed the NCA in the political discussions. We are in the process of just approaching to them. And women in Myanmar, next slide please. Women in Myanmar also participated in the peace process and political discussion. The representatives from the government, from the parliament, and from EAOs includes women in the discussion regarding the question of where are the ethnic women. The ethnic women still everywhere in Myanmar. It is mixed across the country in the city, commercial city in Yangon, as well as in Naypyidaw, because some of the ethnic women are also working in the government organizations. We also have the Ministry of Ethnic Affairs, So, so that even in administrative capital and Naypyidaw, most ethnic women are working at the ministries and departments. Similarly, ethnic women migrated into the the other cities, the other areas, so that we have a multi-ethnic country. We have 135 different ethnic groups in Myanmar. But for the majority group, we have 8 majority ethnic groups in Myanmar. They are, as you well noted, we have Pama, the majority group, and Shan, Karen, Kachin, Kia, and Yakai, and Chin. I myself, I'm a mix of 4 nationalities, so that, most of the ethnic region for the current violent area is Kachin, Shan, and Rakhine. The rest of the areas are peaceful regions. Some of those are, post-conflict area. Making efforts to reach 30% women participation in future peace dialogue is demanded by most of the, women organizations in Myanmar, especially, civil society organizations for the women. But for the 21st century panel conference, many of the delegates, number of delegations are invited, but 17% of the women participated. We expect 30%, but 17 of the participants are women. It was highlighted that the peace process should involve more women in Myanmar, and it has been agreed for some extent, not mentioned exactly 30%, but a reasonable number of women should be included in the future peace talk. That is committed by the authorities, so that for the future political dialogue, we expect more women can be participated in the future peace and negotiation process. Therefore, citizens of this nation honestly yearn for the fruits of success through honesty, during desire for peace, mutual trust, and respect, patience, and perseverance, so that women are very much committed to get a peace, because they suffer a lot when the instability is there. That is why we expect more women to participate in the coming peace dialogue process in Myanmar. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Mong. You have shown us how complex the negotiation is in Myanmar, with the big number of parties, ethnic parties involved in the talks, 10 as of now, and you have several more that are not yet in the loop. And you do ask the question that everyone asks, where is the women? And in this particular case, where are the women and where are the ethnic women, both in government team as well as in the delegations of the different ethnic groups. And we see that there's a long way to go before the number of women truly become what you say reasonable. Yes, I think that is really a very interesting criteria, reasonable, and it has to be operationalized based on certain norms and standards of equity and justice. For now, we are ready to move to our next speaker from Indonesia, Suralya Kamaruzaman, who has held several positions in the University of Sia Kuala as a lecturer in chemical engineering. Really, that's very interesting, but at the same time, not only in the hard science, she is also secretary of the Human Rights Research Center, as well as the division head of the Natural Environment, Farmers Training and Development Research Center, also working as chair of the Climate Change Research Center in the same university. So that's really being able to bring together all these different components. She was the human rights section. She headed the human rights section of Indonesian Muslim Scholar Association in Aceh from 2012 until 2017, and currently serves as member of the Education Research and Development Board of Education in the Autonomous Province of Aceh. She's also the Vice President of Systems Development Goals Forum at the same university and co-headed the Women Empowerment section of the Coordination Forum of Terrorism Prevention in Aceh Province. So without further ado, Ms. Soraya Kamaruzaman, please, your turn now. We're eager to hear you. Do unmute yourself now.
Thank you. Thank you, moderator. Thank you for Nonviolent Peace Force, President Memen, speaker, and all participants to give me opportunity to join in this very important webinar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon for all of you. Let me try to share screen. This is but can host help me? I want to share screen.
Yes, Mama, you may share your screen now. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much. I will share some experience and information about the role of women during peace process and post-conflict in Aceh. So Aceh is one province in Indonesia. I live in the capital province in Banda Aceh. Just few minutes. Just remember you, Aceh have a military operation in 10 years, and then there is huge violence of human rights at that time. From Forum Podiliham, or Care of Human Rights Forum in 1999, they said that during the operation of military, this is more than 1,000 person killing, and then almost 2,000 missing, more than 3,430 torture, and almost 200 rape and others. And then Aceh have very serious issue with earthquake and tsunami, and then at that time is 131 dead 37 missing and 550,000 displaced person. So with very serious earthquake and tsunami will bring an opportunity for Indonesia government and Aceh movement to encourage peace dialogue between them. And then where is the women position then? I will show some experience of women. This is really interesting. Actually, after 10-year military operation, there is 2 women, a Chinese woman who lost the husband to the armed conflict, spoke up verbal testimony in Jakarta. Actually, they talks about the loss feeling, and then about the suffer of both women and men, and then they are the people who broke through the silence, and they are the people who bring the voice of Aceh people during the time, because before there is many of people in Indonesia doesn't know what situation in Aceh. And then other role what women doing to support it's a victim of both armed conflicting parties according to a shared story and strengthening the survival. And then they try to do performing negotiation. So I agree with Teresita, who said that during the conflicts, women. Sorry, I forgot to. There is a woman who working in the grassroots, working and try to bring the peace, the dialogue. But then when they start the dialogue in the top level, the women are missing. And then many of women who working at that time try to spring out the poster campaign, the peace dialogue, and then doing rally. Bring the issue and UN Commission, and then try to dialogue with even with military in high position in Jakarta. When insecure force men to flee, many of them flew their village. Women become the main breadwinner and decision maker and took over most of the social role player by men in the community life. They work together to clean and repair manasa or Islamic school or Islamic place for praying. They went to the field or gathering firewood. They took care of the children and financed their education. Women also undertook various religion programs such as retiring Quran and then gathering from one house to another to build continuous communities and company and help and support who lose family member during the conflicts. This is some picture, and when we try to hearing with military decision maker in Jakarta, and doing a campaign. This is not women from Aceh, but women from other place in Indonesia who support peace especially in Aceh at that time, and Timor-Leste and Papua, because at that time there is 3 places have military operation. And then the big issue is when this is Women Role and Strategy, a grand agenda of Aceh women held in 2000. This is in before UN Resolution 1325. Actually, we held the Women Congress in February. Participate near 500 women from all possible background. Many of their suffer from district, from armed conflict. And that time they sat together for dialogue. We share a painful experience and then form strong bond and plan for the future, sharing to hope that we will be able to make Aceh better, and the peace was absolutely recommended for the better Aceh. So with that time, we call there is term where why women come together, because this very strong theme is about spirit of Aceh women who sit together for safe, secure, peace and peace. And that Congress, we have 22 two recommendations, and we come to our president, Abdurrahman Wahid, that time, and bring the issue and asking him to stop send the troop, and then starting with peace dialogue. And other strategy, women lobbies various parties to involve women in the process of negotiating and implementing the humanitarian pause, and being facilitated by the Henry Dunant Center for Humanitarian Dialogue. And then what going on when has we and starting with peace dialogue, just same with other place experience. This women has been neglected in peace negotiation. Formal peace negotiation between both Aceh movement and Indonesia elites, facilitated by third party. It's at the beginning, starting by Henry Dunant Center and Crisis Management Initiative and mediator of a phrase of media mass. Peace dialogue has been held in Aceh at the beginning, when they starting with Henry Dunant Center, but then moved to Jakarta, Tokyo, Stockholm, Geneva, and Helsinki, and gradually by implementing humanitarian case, Islamic Sharia, the cassation of hostilities agreement or KOHA, up to sign of peace agreement between Indonesia Republic and then Aceh movement in 15 of August 2005. During the peace negotiation, there was no single women participant among five official negotiator team member in GAM and Indonesia government. The absence of gender experience in the mediator team member, but in Aceh movement side, there was one woman as expert who give them some very important issue about the about the situation in Aceh. So you see the picture, just the similar the picture Teresita show us. So in the peace memorandum of understanding has not addressed the issue of injustice experienced by the Acehese people, but still can stop the conflict and violence, and will be a starting point to peace building. Why is women? Teresia already mentioned about this, so I just passing this slide, but I want to show something else. The Helsinki actually in an MOU, did not include gender aspect in the development conflict resolution, UN 1725 resolution. This is not covered at all. This cause women-related issue was not managed in the Aceh Peace MOU. No recognized women right abuse, including rape and sexual harassment. There is rapes. It's actually is rapes. Sorry. I have problem with my glass. So a rape bring a deep traumatic for victim in the family. And raping in armed conflict is not common sexual criminal, but this is power and control. And then it is just understanding of troop and a security guard having privilege for this. And then what's the women role after conflict in Aceh? So women working for few issues. One is capacity building, and then try to campaign and advocate for police, and then development program and budget agency advocacy, and then a peace awareness raising campaign and monitoring and assessment. What we did in police advocacy, just example, women actively involved in drafting of law of government of Aceh, draft a synchronized building advocacy coalition with national NGO, and actively engaged in advocacy of the LOGA both at the Aceh level and in the House of Representative or the adoption of the law. With that point, we try to bring back the women issue in LOGA because we didn't see in MOU. So we get some few issue for women in LOGA after that. And other what we did actually drawing an academic text and draft of Kanun of the Aceh Truth Commission and Reconciliation, and then actually become legislation. That's position we working with human rights activists. It's not just women's group, but with human rights activists in Aceh. And the draft become a member become parliament initiative, and then finally is passed. And then we make Acehnese for the autonomy of the Kanun of Aceh, and then this is for women right charter, and then we preparing draft for women local regulation we call kanun, women protection and children protection. So there is some local regulation passed after post tsunami, and then for capacity building. Oops, sorry. For capacity building, this is we try to strengthen women leader in affiliate level and local leader boys and girls, and then assistant new government in budgeting, policy making, and facilitate a various of training workshop in order to improve their capacity in serving their people, especially to make sure this is gender budgeting there, and then try to support and then building and develop alternative education model like human rights school led by Contrast and School of Varieties led by Soliditas Perempuan, Women Human Rights School by Flower Aceh, and other. And then rebuilding the data and involving human rights violation case, including human rights violation, and capacity building ex-combatant for being legislation. And then other issue we did advocacy for program and budget, just experience. We try to participation to bring the issue for women in design of victim rehabilitation program in BRA, and then how to and then what we did try to bring to support the budget for protection women and then children. Before that, we just get almost 200,000 rupiah. 200,000 rupiah. I can't account in US dollar, but it's very limited budget for that the part for women department. But then after that, we get more than 2,000% up after we bring the issue and then bring the data about women's situation. It is the first governance after a peace process. And then what else? But the very important issue is the situation of victim. After 5 years, and then ICTG tried to do research and asking for the survival, the situation of them. And the peace process actually does not acknowledge their suffering. This is just like MOU. And then farmer combatant receive fair share of assistance that is funds night. So some of them get very good sharing, but some of them didn't get something. Victims are marginalized because they do not have met BRR criteria. Just example, in BRR criteria, there is no women rape and women violation. So they just get data criteria like somebody who lost house, they will get new house. Somebody who lost father will get some company, some budget, and then the children will get some scholarship. Somebody who lost the economy, they will get support and other. But there is no criteria about women who get rape or sexual abuse. So that's why many of them don't get support. And then they have a strong desire to find out the truth, that the issue, and it's really important. And then in several instances, the location are murder of despair, the people they love, and then justice must be, what they're asking, justice must be proposed through trial and punishment. And then the victim really need assurance that the violence will not happen again anywhere in Aceh or in Indonesia. So with that situation, actually, transitional justice is really important, and we think Truth and Reconciliation Commission very potential promote access to justice and approach of transitional justice and reconciliation in Aceh. The MOU actually has provided opportunity for the implementation of transition justice through the establishment of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And then in that situation, the Aceh women movement is fully involved in drafting and advocating for Aceh Truth and Reconciliation Kanun to ensure that women receive substantive justice, because we saw in the interrogation body there is no justice and fair for women, especially women who get raped and sexual abuse. And then in the local regulation, Article 5, so actually we try to advocate and finally we get it. This from 7 commissioner members should be minimal, 2 women should be there. And today, actually according to law saying that the Truth Commission should establish 1 year after LOGA, but in the reality, the Truth Commission just passed in I think in 2013, and then the Commission of Truth Commission Reconciliation just passed in 16, and they starting working in 2017 to 2022. This is actually the very important process for us, especially for women who get sexual abuse. And then the Aceh Truth Commission aims at the first is strengthen the peace by telling the truth against human rights violation and occurred in the past. And the second, to help achieve reconciliation between the perpetrator of violent human rights, both individual and institution with victim. And the third recommendation, comprehensively reparation for victim human right violation according to the universal standard relating to the right of victim. So now the commissioner still working and start to get data, and then now they have more than 3,000 data by name and by address, but they still not finished yet. And the recommendation will bring to our government and in province and national level to continue, and then to for recommendation come from the Truth Commission. And at this moment, we working to preparation for local for regional action to protect women and children. Draft actually still on drafting the protection women and children protection in social conflict situation, and we hope in the end of December will signed by our governor. Maybe there's some information I would share for you. I hope can you get more information, and I give back to the moderator. Thank you very much, and forgive me for my English.
Oh, excellent, actually. So thank you very much, Soraya. I think you developed a very important component that has not been fully discussed, and that pertains to transitional justice. And indeed, this is in keeping with your life work. I noted here in your CV that you have been an awardee of the Indonesian National Human Rights Defender Award, and also of the Pixel Project for being human rights defender role model as well as women role model. So I think for now we are ready to move to the next speaker. Going back to the Philippines, we have Noraida Abo, who is trainer, facilitator, and community organizer, having been very active on the ground for more than 2 decades now. She's the founder and executive director of the organization called United Youth of the Philippines Women, UNIFIL Women. And she has a degree in mass communication and various diploma and licensure on the psychosocial aspects of the armed conflict. educational psychology, and so on. So she's definitely active, one of the more active leaders in the networks working with women and with other civil society organizations in the Bangsamoro, but also in the national, and has been involved in some of the global campaigns as well. Noraida Abo, please, let's hear from you.
Hi, Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Good afternoon from Mindanao. A rainy afternoon here in Mindanao. Actually, during the presentation of Ma'am Ging Deles, I felt emotional. I was, brought to the memory lane of the peace process in the Bangsamoro region. What I will be sharing with you this afternoon is our experiences during the peace process and now the post-conflict. And I hope these experiences will be, that can also help to uh, help to uh, sorry, I was lost. I am lost of word. Anyway, please, Ma'am Memen, yung sa slide ko. Thank you. Unifil Women works on the humanitarian rights-based approach. By the way, I cannot open my cam because we have a weak signal because of the weather here in Cotabato City. So for the past days, our internet connection is fluctuating. So just my voice. Yes, we work on the humanitarian-based approach framework. The advocacy and lobbying are centered by the rights of women and young girls and the community in general, ensuring that their voice are being heard and put into consideration by the duty bearer. Um, Women in conflict situation with the presence of corporal data of gender-based consequences of war and forced displacement. It is a consensus that women and their children suffer the most with heightened exposure to economic instability and vulnerability to violence, sexual exploitation, and prostitution. And that includes trafficking. Widows and survivors of war, direct and indirect victims, have to provide for their families in a poverty-stricken region in which more often than not, they have to revert to desperate measures. Extreme poverty, aggravated by the lack of peace and security, has deprived many Bangsamoro women and children of their basic education. So we know that not most of the Bangsamoro children are going to school because most of the schools in the villages are destroyed by the war, by the conflict. Women leadership in peace building in initiatives. So this is the role of women in the peace process in our communities. So in pre-peace dialogue, where we had a consultations in the 7 provinces, the group who is most affected in every conflict and violence happens in the communities. We actively involve women and young people in all aspects and level of our interventions. So this dialogue was conducted in all 7 provinces of the BARM. I mean, 6 provinces of BARM included the North Cotabato province. In the community level, we empowered a group of peace advocates advocates from women and young people. All of them are internally displaced. They are evacuees. They become our active actors and partners in our advocacy and lobbying. We do a massive community awareness on the issue and providing them update on the ongoing peace process. This awareness raising led by our women and young people peace advocates. So we capacitate these women leaders and young people so they can also aware and educate their communities on the issues of that is happening on the peace process. Out of this consultation or dialogue, we had the agenda building. So in the beginning of the peace process, we gathered issues, concern, and agenda of all community women and young people. We do it through house-to-house or focus group discussions in all the 7 provinces. All women peace advocate also actively facilitates the agenda building. Every idea should be counted. During the actual submission of the Women and Youth Peace Agenda, we conducted big event, Women and Peace Summit. We invited different members or panel of the Peace Talk to provide the update of the peace process and the draft content of the proposed organic law. In that event, women and youth hand over their agenda to the panel. We asked the panel to commit on the integration of the women and youth agenda. Lobbying in the peace panel. Together with other civil society organizations, we push that there shall be enough numbers of women and youth in the peace panel. Women issues clearly understand by also a woman. In times of conflict, women are most vulnerable and most affected. Thus, they should be equally represented in the peace panel to raise their issues, concern, and needs and agenda. And because we have numbers of CSO supports, women and youth in the peace panel is represented. In every public session of peace dialogue, we bring our women and youth peace advocates to participate, and they regularly provide feedback in their own respective communities. After the lobbying, so during the signing of the peace agreement, UNIFIL women, including our organized women and youth, participated in the mass mobilization, rallies in support on the signing of the Bangsamoro Organic Law. The mass mobilization message is to let the Congress and Senate know that all Bangsamoro people are supporting the law and that this is the only way to have lasting peace in Mindanao. After the signing in the transition period, women are tasked on empowering women, UNIFIL women tasked on empowering women and girls to become an active citizen of Bangsamoro. Does not end in the signing of the peace agreement. We continue to lobby in the implementation of what is in the organic law, including the agenda of the women and girls. Together with the women and girls peace advocates, we continue our dialogue to the members of the parliament to create laws and policies promoting the holistic welfare and development of the women and girls. And at present, the Bangsamoro, the parliament has created the Bangsamoro Women Commission. So this Bangsamoro Women Commission is working with the civil society, and that includes our organization. Recently, they just finished drafting the Regional Action Plan on Women, Peace, and Security. And this will be launched this month, October 30. And this RAP WPS is the updated version of the 2017-2019 RAP WPS of the ARM. During the ARM, it has 30 action points and 30 indicators. But in the latest RAP WPS, we only have 4 action points and 17 indicators. So this action point is, number 1 is the empowerment and participation, protection and prevention, promotion and mainstreaming, monitoring and evaluation. Maybe later I can expound on this during the question and answer. And after the signing of the law of the BOL on August 6, 2018, if I am not mistaken, what we expect is that the Bangsamoro government will be able to make significant steps, not only in advancing the cause of women, but also in ensuring the realization of what the comprehensive agreement to the Bangsamoro and the Bangsamoro Organic Law envision, which is a peaceful and resilient community. And that ends my presentation. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat. Terima kasih, Noraida. I think you outlined very well women's participation, women's role in different phases of the different phases of a very long peace process that we saw in the Bangsamoro, and something that is still holding on. I noticed there's a very good conversation going on inside in the chat box. Please continue with that, because we won't really have much time to address some of your comments and your questions. And in any case, we are multitaskers, right? We can listen carefully to what's being said and at the same time be typing something, answering and engaging in that conversation. And yeah, we can do that certainly and maximize the time that we have. Just basically up to 4 o'clock, then maybe extend a little bit up to 4:15 if that's okay with everyone. In any case, we're now at the tail end of our panel. Last but not least, certainly, we will have Dr. Fitriani Bintang, a research fellow at the Department of Politics and IR of the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Indonesia. Her research focuses on women, peace and security, defense and security in Asia Pacific, non-traditional security, as well as Indonesian politics and foreign policy. Dr. Fitri graduated at the Cranfield University in UK with a PhD in security and defense, and is also a lecturer on gender in IR at the UI University of Indonesia, also involved in looking at cyber diplomacy issue. She's a member of the expert roster of the UN Office for Disarmament Affairs. And in this age of digital technology, certainly this is a very important concern. So, Dr. Fitri, let's hear from you.
Thank you for having me, Prof. Prof. Miriam Corona Feller. I want to say congratulations to the Nonviolent Peace Force. President Pomemen Carmen Maitan, Dr. Delcy Ronnie and team for successfully organizing this discussion series on the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the UN Security Council resolution. And this is the 4th time this month. Thank you also for the support by Canada Mission to ASEAN. And today we have heard reflection from other women, Madam Ging Teresia Cuentas de Les, Dr. Kanea Raha, Dr. Wawa Maung, Ibu Soraya Kamaruzaman, dan Po Noraida Abo. And it's well moderated by Prof. Iye. My closing speech would be more on the reflection of the ASEAN perspective adoption of women, peace, and security agenda. We know that the agenda for women, peace, and security is an objective adopted by the United Nations Security Council 1325 in 2000. It takes 17 years for ASEAN, the regional organization that we are in, to actually adopt women, peace, and security. We can argue that the resolution of women, peace, and security is a way that the world finally acknowledged how women meaningful participation were previously overlooked, and that gradual improvement is needed to further recognition and support for women participation in the creation and maintenance of peace. However, such acceptance for women participation and peace and security is still relative and varied between regions and countries in the world, especially in our areas of the world that still witness several internal conflict. In Southeast Asia, the ASEAN way enables member states to deal with their internal problem themselves for face saving. That is a common gesture in the ASEAN culture of preserving one reputation or dignity, even if it means allowing the states neglect the right and security of minorities in the society, including women and minorities, including girls and people with disabilities. Such practice renders to the seemingly lack of regional joint effort in protecting women and supporting their meaningful role in peace process in Southeast Asia. We can see this in the missing protection of human rights for women and girls in conflict and post-conflict areas, social injustice that may lead to conflict, and other cross-cutting issues of concern for the region women rights agenda, such as neglect of the issue of unsafe migration and human trafficking at the time of conflict, gender-based violence, both in public and private in the time of conflict and post-conflict, female refugees and internally displaced persons, inadequate support for women involved in the security and peace sectors. We kind of see that there's very few of civil society, even in this region, advocating the increase of women in peace and the military sector. As well, we see the rise of violent extremism in the region involving women and girls. This is arguably because in the context of ASEAN, in this region, Southeast Asia, women issues are historically framed through the economic development approach, as if welfare becomes the panacea and if all concern regarding women human rights will automatically fulfilled when Southeast Asian people reach a certain level of prosperity. My organization, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, conducted research on ASEAN progress in adopting women, peace, and security agenda, also supported by the Canada Mission to ASEAN. And we found that there is a recent increase of acceptance in joint cooperation works on women issues beyond the previously traditional ASEAN pillar, because ASEAN only see the issue of women under the socio-cultural pillars. Meanwhile, it needs a bridging of political, security, and economic pillar to fully implement the four elements of women, peace, and security. Those are prevention, protection, participation, as well as relief and recovery. So it seems that the ASEAN region are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. After concern of the ASEAN relatively slow adoption of the women, peace, and security, because the resolution of women, peace, and security in the UN is adopted in 2000. Meanwhile, ASEAN joint statement on promoting women, peace, and security is only adopted in 2017, 3 years ago. This is because the region put highly recognition to the principle of non-interference, peaceful settlement of dispute, and consensus in decision-making process. So there's not many voices that support and endorse the much needed support for women inclusion in the peace process and post-conflict peace building. But lately, the Southeast Asian region experienced a breakthrough And the recent women peace security approach include efforts to increase women as mediators, allow women entry into security sectors that was previously only male dominated, and also encourage female participation in decision-making level, both in national and regional institutions. We see more increased campaign to end gender-based violence in conflict and post-conflict situation. We can see also in the regional perspective, there's a, as I mentioned before, the Joint Declaration on Women, Peace and Security in 2017. After that, we have witnessed ASEAN Women Peace Registry in 2018. Several women present here are included in those registry. There is also regional trainings and symposium of women, peace and security in 2019, as well as effort to conduct a research, a baseline study that is agreed by the ASEAN countries' government on to what extent that this country member state, ASEAN member state, accept women, peace and security implemented in their country. That research should be released this year. That research is endorsed by the ACWC, ASEAN Commission of Women Protection and Promotion of Women and Children. The progress of the regional adoption of global norms to pursue increased role of women in peace and security could not take place without the active engagement of norm entrepreneurs. Those countries are in the ASEAN context of Philippines and to an extent of Indonesia that already put women in the formal peace negotiation and agreement. In ASEAN context, only Philippines and Indonesia already adopted national action plan of women, peace and security, although we increasingly see Cambodia, Malaysia and Thailand including the word of women, peace and security in their national legislation. We also see that because of more open and more empowered civil society and women involvement in the Philippines and Indonesia, the representative to ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Right of Women and Children, ACWC, from Philippines and Indonesia are unique. They are from the background of academic activists or feminists, and they know the understanding of women issue is cross-cutting. And therefore, they push for more of activists and more substantive inclusion of women, which is different with other member state representative of ACWC that often are civil servants, that usually bringing a more bureaucratic approach and agenda approach without some substantion. Recently, the collaboration between the Philippine and Indonesia representative to the ACWC with the support of Malaysia and Cambodia managed to include the agenda of gender, peace and security, advancing women roles in peace mediation in Southeast Asia in the ACWC Commission 2020 work plan. And based on the work plan initiative, the socio-cultural pillar will actually bridge to have discussion with the security and political pillar, and perhaps this in the future we will have the ASEAN Defense Minister meeting to also discuss the issue of women, peace and security, and therefore pursue the more inclusive role of women in the peace process. Yet still, there are differences in perception of what is considered as the scope of women issue in ASEAN member state. And the traditionally sustainable discussion need to be conducted in the ASEAN way, whereby it should be collegial and non-intrusive. And as we know, there are limits that ASEAN government is agreeing to do, such as there are very few restraint. We are being very much restrained to give direct critics to sometimes to our own government. Not all the government in Southeast Asia, but there are some government, and we are encouraged to give critics and raise demand to private channel. But I think here in this forum, we can bring our solidarity to actually endorse together to create a regional network of women um, to push forward the women roles in peace and mediation. For example, in a way that is acceptable. For example, for several ASEAN countries to support women to enter security forces, military or police forces, may be regarded to contradicting the norms as because women are usually said as peaceful, not engaging in a way that is militaristic or police manner. But we know so well that security forces need to be more inclusive of women, and they need to have an argument of equal access and to provide role model of women can participate in the security sector and also in the peace discussion. Gladly, ASEAN accept the increasing role of women working in the peace and women and as mediators. For this reason, we're here today. I will call upon you to do something that we can work on, that we all can work for, to build and push together, be it for us here that work in the track 1 in the government, representing the government, or track 2, representing the civil society, organization, university, or think tank like me. We can do this to support and work together to further women meaningful participation and role in post-conflict and peace process in Southeast Asia. So the ASEAN government as a whole would think that this is agenda that is important. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Fitri. I think I made a mistake. That should be the closing remark, but it's very good to hear it now because you did a good roundup for the region after we focused in on the different situation in the 4 countries that we heard today, and certainly you illustrated how the issue of women, peace, and security actually cuts across the different segments and institutional structures of the ASEAN, and that shows how important we are able to mainstream the issue of women, peace, and security in practically all aspects of concerns, political, economic, cultural. But in talking about armed conflict, then there's really a big part of it that's about peace and security, and we do want women there. I think we have 2 hands raised, and we have several questions here that we wish to address. What we will do to save on time is to listen to the 2 questions who want to ask, to the 2 people who want to ask, but do keep it very brief, and then sort of get some of the questions that we have here before we ask our panelists to do, to focus on one question and just give a short remark to round it all up. Is that okay with everyone? So I think it's Karen who raised her hand first, and then Achana second. So we'll hear from Karen first, and then Achana, and then go back to some of the questions that have been raised and but not covered in the 2 questions from Karen and Achana. Please, Karen, go ahead. Karen? Unmute?
Karen,
Or
unmute mo. Karen, please unmute yourself.
Sorry, I was not raising my hand. That's a mistake. Sorry.
all right. So
Achana.
pass, Achana, then Achana. Are you ready with your question?
Anjana, you can go now. You can ask your question, please. Anjana?
I just saw a message here from Noraida who says she will have to say goodbye now because he has a meeting at 4 p.m. So Thank you, Noraida, for joining us. And yeah, it's 4:05, so we don't want to keep you any longer. But if you want to, to make a short remark or type something in the chat box, then certainly that's welcome. Oh, she said thank you again. So goodbye, Noraida, and hear from you and see you again sometime. So let's hear from Achana now. Is she on? Is she?
You don't have audio, Anchana?
All right, let me just sort of go back to some of the questions. But Anchana, okay, I think you've unmuted yourself. Are you ready to speak? We can't really hear you.
We cannot hear you, Anchana. We cannot hear you. Is there a problem with the audio? We cannot hear you. Yeah. Maybe
if you're using earplugs, maybe you can take earphones. Maybe you can take it off. Now you're muted again. Okay, maybe so we don't lose time. Let me just take a look. Just sort of bring back some of the issues here. There are related questions about how to move women from track 3 to track 1, and I think that's a broad question, and it's somehow also related to the question on southern Thailand, which is from Farida here, and I hope Farida's still here. About why we have peace process because we have conflict parties, and it's not enough. I think what she's saying is that it's not enough really to just be on track 2 and 3, and the problem of civil society in southern Thailand is that they can't identify the problem in the same way, so they see it differently. But maybe let's hear some comment on South Thailand. We'll have to ask other people to unmute themselves, but we're still ready to hear Anchana. Please unmute yourself, Anchana. So that's one question on southern Thailand in particular. The broad question for everyone on moving from track 3, where we are already women are doing a lot, but not so much in track 1, and a specific question as well on Myanmar, having to do with it's actually a question from coming from Amalia Wulan. Do you think the national ceasefire agreement is still relevant for peace building in Myanmar? How about reaching out to groups outside the formal NCA process as well as inside, including local political parties, civil society, and national think tanks? And then a second question on what is your suggestion to Rakhine women in particular? So we have these two focus questions on Myanmar and southern Thailand, and the broad question on moving from track 3 to 1. Unless Achana is now ready to raise her question, I think you're ready, Achana. Shall we? Can you unmute yourself so we can hear you? All right. Try again. No sound. Happened. You want to type in? Just use the chat box then, and then we'll see how we'll bring it in later on. Please use the chat box. Anyone who wants to respond? Maybe let's hear from Dr. Kanaya from Southern Thailand first, and then Dr. Mong. Kanlaya, Dr. Kanlaya, are you ready? Dr. Kanlaya, please unmute.
Okay, yes. I listen. Okay, I can listen.
Right. Go ahead, please. Or there was a question for you. You want to check it out, all right? Are you ready to answer now?
Yeah, okay. The question, okay. The question from me, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think in not a question, but in my opinion. Okay, yes, right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think in my mind, how do we collaborate together in Philippines, Myanmar, Thailand, what Indonesia? How do collaborate about peace project together? Yeah.
John, and that's a very good question that some of our panelists can answer. But there was a question for you specifically. The question is the problem of having different, analysis or interpretation of the conflict in southern Thailand, and how more can be done in track one. I think that was the question for you with regard to Aceh. I mean, southern Thailand. If you're ready to answer it now, we can, or later we can go back to you. But maybe in the meantime, did you hear the question, Dr.
We have
Zaraha? Yeah.
Okay, เมื่อกี้อาจารย์ถามได้ใช่ไหม Yes, okay, yes, okay. You can ask me, okay, yes.
So
yeah.
What the question, okay?
The question is, the question was, you have different analysis about the nature of the conflict in southern Thailand, and I think the assumption there is it makes the resolution difficult. And also, how do you bring more women into the high-level political process? Because you talked about civil society work, but how about the political, the actual negotiation? This was the question for you.
Okay, yes, I think now the soldier about peace dialogue. It has the peace dialogue now about soldiers and citizens. Now, may I you see in the paper in paper you see it. Women and the peace process in deep south of Thailand. You see it, okay? Because now the soldier, I think in my mind, the soldiers can listen more about the citizen, can listen more about the woman. Now, before this, the soldier cannot listen many things, anything. But now they listen more. I think in my mind, it's very easier to collaborate with soldiers or ministers or political parties with the women in the peace process in my mind. And in my research, it has two research. I write about the conflict in the deep south of Thailand. One research is Zakat for the orphans in the deep south. Two, rehabilitation the widows in Pattani. You see, if you can search about my research, how the government think, how the women thinks, how the people thinks. Okay, yes, I think it's better now. It's change the head of the soldiers now. He is compromised. He is compromised now. I think he listen more. He listen the children, he listen the women, he listen the people. No, ชื่อเกรียงชัยไหม no, he is เกรียงชัย
Right.
He is เกรียงชัย Sirirat, the head of the new head of the soldier who is responsible in the deep south of Thailand. I think it's very better now in my mind.
So thank you for that elaboration. What you're saying is that at this level, at the level of the southern border provinces, there is that kind of track one going on. But yeah, it's still a big problem how to raise the track one engagement at the level of the national government. Dr. Mong, you want to respond to the question? Please unmute. Right, good.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I'm not that expert in this area because I'm from the planning and finance. We have 3 ASEAN obas, you know. The other 2 are very busy, and the other one is, you know, the other lady is, how to say, she's very busy with the election campaign because our election is coming 8th November. So that she is very busy with the campaign, so that I'm participating in this, how to say, in this panel. Okay, so that, you know, I really, you know, my understanding is, you know, a national ceasefire agreement is still, you know, it is being strengthened by the union government because, you know, they are negotiating part by part. I mean, the agreements, you know, they just, that the part three is only just they completed within the August 2020. They just completed it. You know, every time they have the meeting, the ICM meeting, and also the summit, you know, a panel peace conference, you know, after the summit, whatever they agree, they are incorporated into the union accord. You know, this is the process. So that I believe, you know, the national ceasefire agreement is still, you know, strengthened and very much interested by the union government. And then, how to say, the other thing is, the other question is, you know, I hope that the union government will strengthen more and more in the future for the participation of the, you know, how to say, non-signing EAOs, ethnic armed groups. Some of the ethnic armed groups are not signed yet, the NCA, so that, you know, they are trying to explain, trying to touch, trying to persuade, you know, to how to say, to agree to sign the national ceasefire agreement for the, you know, the peace process in Rakhine State. You know, as far as I know, you know, they have that committee, especially for the peacemaking process. You know, some of the ladies also included in this process. I mean, the members of the committee. But you know, according to our country's, you know, procedure and political participation process, most of the parties, you know, they can also, how to say, some of the women from those region, from those ethnic groups, you know, they can participate, you know, this you know, political campaign and parties, political campaign, as well as, you know, political processes. I mean, so that, you know, they can be, I mean, they can be the how to say, elected person from this, you know, respective regions, they can participate. But, you know, what we need is, we need to strengthen the capacity of, you know, those, you know, people. If it is limited, for example, male representatives are more competitive than those women, then the people will vote, you know, the male representative. That is why, you know, what we need is, you know, in our country, the most civil society organization, you know, regarding women empowerment, you know, they are giving the training, and some of the, you know, how to say, some of the regional campaign, and they are just, you know, strengthening the political women political participation. You know, coming election, you know, next month, you know, uh, I saw more and more women political, how to say, candidates, you know, into the election.
Oh, yan. Wow, nandiyan na pala si Suna.
Be, how to say, Well,
Welcome.
slowly and slowly, but it takes time because we women stay behind for a long time. That is why I think the necessary is we need to how we strengthen the women empowerment, and also to raise their knowledge, and as well as their capacity, public speaking, and also leadership. Those kind of things are very important. Then the women candidates will be more and more in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mo. I just got a call from our moderator, Professor Iya. She just cut off. There was a power failure in her place, so she can't get back anymore. So I think it's about time that we wrap up also. And I'd like to express our gratitude to all our speakers. And on that hopeful note, Dr. Mo, she was saying that there is the possibility for us to participate, for women to still get involved, to increase our engagement. And we were also saying that how important it is to really strengthen our capacities as women. But I'd like to pick up on the point of Dr. Kanlaya when she said that how we women in the region can really forge solidarity between us, among ourselves, to collaborate, how we can really increase our collaboration, our cooperation as women from the region. So with that, I see some possibilities for us to engage more, being one in this region that are really advocating for women, peace and security. So I'd like to wrap this webinar, this online discussion, and I really want to thank all of you for your participation, for this dynamic discussion. Even at the chat box is really very active to see a lot of voices coming in, and the experiences was really very rich in terms of sharing those information coming from the different peace processes in the region. So I thank you and I close this session, but I would like to request everyone to put on your video so that Mark can have our screenshot all together, like a group shot for a virtual conference like this. And Mark, can you give us a cue when you do the screenshot? Hello, Annie. Hi, Annie. Last time I saw you was in East Timor, I remember.
A long time ago.
Thank you. So may we request may we request our participants and our colleagues to show their video so that we can have a photo shoot. I think we're still waiting for some. I think
4 more. Yeah. You just count, no? Hello, Ma'am Marcia.
Amalia, Adeline, Emily, Idang. Yeah. So we'll be so okay, so
okay. You count, Mar.
Okay, I will count, but I'm still waiting for some others to. Otherwise, we can start. So, okay, so in first photo, okay, one, two. That's one. One more. One, two, and thank you very much. That's all. Thank you very much, guys. Finished.
Terima kasih, Kapkun ka.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Salamat. Terima kasih. Yezu miyazi damade, ma'am.
Bye. Thank you.
For me, I'm here for Dr.
Thank you, Ashish.
She can't join us tonight. We have something like 20 approved na mga